join me in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to read a proclamation proclaiming August 10th and 11th, 2012, the Clackamas Fire District's Fill a Boots Day. Whereas muscular dystrophy refers to a group of more than 40 neuromuscular diseases that cause generalized weakness and muscle wasting, two of the most common neuromuscular diseases include Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a disease found in children that progresses slowly with survival rare beyond the late 20s, and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, a disorder that progresses rapidly in adult clients. And whereas Muscular Dystrophy Association is a dedicated partnership with scientists and citizens aimed at conquering neuromuscular diseases, MDA is one of the world's leading national health agencies supporting research, patient care, and education. And whereas Clackamas County Fire District has been working with the Muscular Dystrophy Association in their fight against neuromuscular disease, and whereas Fill the Boot is an opportunity for Oregon firefighters to ask community members to drop donations into the fire boots to help local communities and families served by the MDA in the state. This year marks the 58th anniversary of the partnership between the firefighters and MDA in the fight against muscular wasting disease. And whereas Clackamas Fire Department has spent many hours collecting money on the streets for this campaign, and whereas firefighters locally and nationally are the largest contributors to MDA, Clackamas firefighters collected $26,398 in 2011 to help the fight against 43 types of muscular disease. Now, therefore, I, Doug Neely, by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of Oregon City, do hereby proclaim August 10th and 11th, 2012, Clackamas Fire District 1, Fill the Boot Day for the City of Oregon City. In witness hereof, I have hereto set my hand on this first day of August 2012. Thank you. Is there anybody? I don't know if there's anybody that wants to speak to this proclamation or not. If not, then we're going to go to a Metro update from our counselor, Carlotta Coad, our counselor to the Metro Council. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. See if I can do this. Before I get into the actual slideshow, good evening, councilors and mayor, and I have a confession. I had a bag of zucchini to bring you. My husband said, everywhere you go from now on, bring a bag of zucchini until like September, October, and it's in the garage. So if you need zucchini, just send me an email.
I have a lot of radishes to pass out.
Radishes.
We don't want any competition with our farmers market.
Oh, right. Okay. It's a good thing I forgot it at home. The other little thing I wanted to bring up before I go into the regular presentation is that, some of you may realize that we lost a lot of Oxbow Park last winter through the flooding, but we've moved our amphitheater, and we have the coolest thing going on this summer for people who camp overnight, and a lot of people are taking vacations a lot closer to home now. So if you stay overnight at Oxbow Park on the weekend, Friday nights there's a sing-along campfire, and we bring in professional local musicians. So tomorrow night or Friday night is Mike Doherty and Kevin Shea Johnson doing folk music. Rick Meyer's Old Time Music is the next Friday. So there's a whole series of these free concerts, sing-along, campfire events. And then on Saturday night, there's nature storytelling. One of them, kind of fascinating, is called Salmon Stories and the Legend of the Swallowing Monster. That one might be pretty cool. That's August 11th. Put it on your calendar.
Yeah.
So these are, I don't have copies of Green Scene for everybody in the audience to hand out, but I left you copies, and you can find this at OregonMetro.gov, some of the presentations that'll be there over the next several months. So on to the update. Let's see. In the not really that new news categories, we do have 3 new Metro councilors who were all elected in the primary. Mayor Craig Dirksen from Tigard is replacing Councilor Carl Hostica. Sam Chase will be taking over from Rex Burkholder, and Sam's got a long background in community service, particularly in the areas of equity and affordable housing. So I think he's going to be a really good addition to the Metro Council. And then Bob Stacy, who has a long public service record with both the Thousand Friends of Oregon. He's worked at TriMet. He's worked at the Portland Development Commission. He'll be taking over from Governor Barbara Roberts. They'll all be sworn in January, and I think they're going to be a fun new group to work with. Last year, we expanded the urban growth boundary, and we have been waiting since then for LCDC's approval of our expansion, and in June, they voted unanimously to approve it. There was some question for a while because the staff had recommended not approving all of it, but the commission itself approved every bit, so we're very excited about that. It's a pretty modest expansion by historic standards. In 2002, the last time we expanded by about a little bit over 20,000 acres. That was when a large area of Damascus, around Damascus, was brought in. This time we brought in just about 2,000 acres. So I think, and it's pretty targeted toward areas that can be annexed directly into existing cities and industrial areas that we'll be able to use pretty quickly. The other good news from the courts was that our excise tax, construction excise tax, was approved, and then we heard that the people who had appealed it will not further appeal it. So we can start giving grants to cities again for the kind of urban planning development, both inside the UGB and outside the UGB, and we'll be getting that up to speed pretty soon now. Oops, I almost zipped past that one. The Portland to Milwaukee Light Rail project, I think some of you heard that we did get the full agreement from the federal government for 50% of the funding, $750 million. This amounts to more than 14,000 jobs in the Portland metro region, and already I think there are more than around 2,000 people already working on the project. I happen to live just above one of the stations that's being built, so I go by progress every day, and it's really exciting to see it happen. It's a huge piece of infrastructure and will be great when we have this thing opening in September 2015. And at the rate they're going, I think they're going to be on schedule or ahead of schedule. It's pretty exciting. Willamette Falls, your own special area. We're very excited that we're all still working. We still have a good working team on this. As you know, Clackamas County has bought the West Lynn side. We're still doing due diligence on the Oregon City side. Several of us have had tours now. We're planning a tour for the legislature in early September to make sure that the legislature, at least the local people, know what we're up to. And we've also been, we were actually, Metro was asked if we would please help buy the locks, and our staff informed us that no, we cannot use National Area Bonds money to buy the locks, but there is a group called One Willamette that's forming to figure out whether or not that the region or some group of private-public combination can't buy the locks, because it's a pretty important resource. I think it's important to Oregon City, no, it's important to West Lynn, and I think it's important to the region. We have the potential to have barge traffic up and down that locks again, so we're working on it. A group of staff from the Metro Council who are working on the Blue Heron site did go to Minneapolis. You may have heard us mention earlier the Mill Ruins Park in Minneapolis is similar, not exactly the same, as the Blue Heron site. There was a conference in Minneapolis that we were invited to anyway, so we thought we'd go and tour this site and meet the architect on the lower corner. There's Tom Meyer, who this is actually an area that he's been dreaming about since he was a kid. He was an architecture student right across the river here at the University of Minnesota, and I also used to see this building before it burned down and think, gosh, right there on the river, you ought to be able to do something with that building. When it burned down, they were about to plow the walls under, and Tom Meyer went out and said, don't knock those walls down. We can build a museum in there and other things. So there is a museum inside that, what looks like a ruin on the left. And then there's also, he has 2 floors of the building that was reconstructed inside those walls for his architecture studio. They've built a penthouse on the top floor. They have a lot of other offices and businesses and restaurants and other apartments in the building. So it's a pretty successful site, and it's attracted billions of dollars in other investment. The Guthrie Theater is right across the street from it now. They've converted a number of these old warehouses into condos and townhomes and offices, so it's been a wonderful rebirth for that whole river community. And the one up in the upper right is what they think the river part of the park. It's what it looks like right now, and they plan to be excavating over the next probably 10 years to build a great park there. A group of us also toured closer to home, Centennial Mills, and a couple of your staff joined us. And one of the reasons we did this was another case of lessons learned. And one of the big questions we had for Centennial Mills, for the team there at Portland Development Commission, was really a question: are we moving too slowly? Are we doing too much due diligence? Because we've been questioned for that. Are we taking too much time kind of answering as many questions as we can before we put taxpayer dollars into buying Blue Heron? And what we heard resoundingly from the PDC team was absolutely spend as much time as you need to up front, because they bought this site with very little exploration because they were going to tear it down for a park. And then as soon as they got close to tearing it down, the community said, no, we want you to use the building. Well, the building, and Tony was with us, the building is a bit of a nightmare. And they have not answered the kinds of questions that we're answering about Blue Heron before we invest in it. Things like, what is the structure really like? How much of this is developable? What's the contamination of the site? They didn't answer any of that stuff beforehand, and they really regret it now. So we felt that was a big affirmation of our process, and I think we're much more comfortable continuing to do the research before we put big bucks on the line for this project. We want it to happen for all the reasons everybody wants it to happen for, but we want to make sure we're not just, sinking money into something that's never going to perform. A project that I think is really wonderful, and some of our people around the region are referring to this as the first 21st century corridor project. Some of you may have remembered the old Mount Hood Freeway plan that was going to put freeways all over the region, and people think of it, I hear about it from my neighbors all the time because one of the freeways was going to go through my backyard. But others remember that there was a freeway that was going to go from Gresham down to Highway 26. And instead of that, a group of the local cities, the county, metro, citizens groups, environmental groups have been working for weeks, months, to come up with what are really the outcomes we want in that area, and how do we make the right kind of connections instead of one freeway cutting through that community. And they came up with basically 16 separate projects that focus on providing access to economic development areas. It's called the Springwater Industrial Area. A large portion of Gresham Vista, it's called, is another industrial area. Connecting up, creating more of a gateway, and all of these combined are smaller projects than one major freeway would have been. So it's a very exciting project. All of the jurisdictions, I think this slide is a little bit dated, all of the local elected bodies have already voted unanimously to support this. Metro is next on the docket to endorse it, and then in the fall we will be amending the regional transportation plan to incorporate the projects as we move forward. They've actually phased them out, so there'll be a first phase of a bunch of projects, starting with the ones that have the biggest impact and the lowest cost. Another project similar is a little bit closer to here, and that's the Southwest Corridor project. And again, this was one where 20 years ago we were thinking, well, that's where the next light rail is going to go, from Portland out to Tigard along Barber Boulevard. And instead we now have 7 cities, the counties, local community people, business community people looking at what do we really want to see happen in that area. And similar to the East Metro Connections Plan, what we're really finding is where do people think they're going to want to live? Where do we think the business centers are going to be? What are the things that we want to connect? And what are the best ways to connect them? It's not just about one thing, one kind of transportation option. There has been an online open house. I think it may have come down yesterday. Some of it's still up online. It was pretty fascinating to see. There was a blog, and people could just relate their concerns and interests. In October, there will be a tool similar to when we did the high-capacity transit plan, where you'll be able to go online and make suggestions about what are the things that you think are important in that corridor. We are in phase 2 now of the Climate Smart Communities Plan, and the message we keep trying to deliver everywhere is it is not Metro telling all of the cities in the region how they're going to meet the state greenhouse gas targets. It's really about all of our communities telling us what they're already doing, how they want to grow, how they want their communities to feel in the future. And from that, we can build a whole set of actions that we as a region can invest in to reduce our greenhouse gases and meet state rules. We'll be developing over the next year about 8 case studies. And what we want to do is target different kinds of communities. So one case study will probably be Rockwood, an area that is considered pretty blighted, has some really good things going for it, but a lot of bad things going for it. We'll look at that. We'll look at an industrial area. We haven't picked all of these areas. We'll start with 4 this year and do another 4 next year to just test out different kinds of actions that communities can take to make their communities healthier, more walkable, make it easier to get around, maybe build more parks, and as a consequence, reduce our greenhouse gases. So, and we're really right now at this stage looking at all the kinds of outcomes that we plan to put together and what our communities want to see happening. I think the schedule is not on this one, but there's a schedule that I handed out to you that says we'll have a big summit this fall. It's probably going to be early next year instead, because we've been asked by a lot of our communities to slow it down, give communities more time to engage, and that's what we're going to be doing. Get Street Smart is a project that your city is really active in, and we're very excited. I handed these out. There's a bunch more of these in the back. And this is Metro partnering with several of our cities around the region. And you've already had a couple of these workshops. And basically what it is we bring out experts, and you have experts in your community who are doing some free workshops on things like how to make your street signs and lighting in downtown businesses more attractive and inviting for people coming in off the street, how to design your way to improve sales. There's a whole series of these, and they've been very successful. Turnout has been really good. Nature and neighborhood grants. This year we gave away $1.7 million. I am sorry to say that was all not spent in my district. Last year we did really well in our district, so I can't complain. But this year, I think the only big project we have in District 2 is the Stonebridge Fish Passage in Tryon Creek Park. The rest of these are distributed more fairly around the region, but we have some great things happening here in any case. A big one is the trolley trail and the Conemaugh Bluffs. We reopened the park. I think most of you, if not all of you, were there for the pie and partying that went on. And we will be starting in September to do the oak release plan at Conemaugh Park. And we've met with the neighborhood this week, and at least the report I heard from staff was that there was a lot of support. There's still a lot of concern and a lot of questions about how we go about doing this. But I think the more we can be out talking to people, the more we can make sure that we're meeting people's concerns and answering their questions. And this is a very, very important piece of habitat for the whole region. This is one of the few places where we can actually restore an oak forest. We've also purchased now more than 500 acres of land in the Willamette Narrows. Metro has purchased for natural areas and open spaces. So we're very excited about that as well. We've had one of our Conversation Project workshops, and that was in Milwaukee, and we have 2 more. This is where we're partnering with Oregon Humanities to get people out into the parks having a different kind of experience. The one in Milwaukee was where we had a planner come out, and we were thinking there might be 8 to 12, maybe 8, somewhere between 8 and 10 people. We had about 30 people show up and had a really terrific conversation about the role of rivers in downtowns, and both our cities, Milwaukee and Oregon City, has that great, wonderful river flowing through it. The next 2 are next Saturday, August 11th, in Beaverton at Cooper Mountain Nature Park, and then one September 22nd at Graham Oaks Nature Park in Wilsonville. We have had a steering committee, an advisory panel meeting for several months now about what we should do in terms of how do we maintain our park system. We've got the 2 bond measures that were passed in 1995 and 2006 that give Metro around $400 million to buy land, but it's only for buying the land and stabilizing it. It's not for anything like maintaining it or building the kind of parks we want to build there. And we've acquired more than 12,000 acres. So we've been asking people, is there a mechanism we can use? What's the smartest way that we can raise funds to do the kind of maintenance and ongoing work in our parks? And we think the advisory panel is supposed to report to us next week. We think what they will say is go out for a levy, probably in May 2013. So you'll be hearing more about that as soon as we hear the official word from that committee. And then the report from the visitors venues is once again another really record-breaking year. The Convention Center Hotel, we have two teams bidding on building it. You might remember we talked about this a few years ago, and then the market collapsed. It would have been a huge public investment. This time we're looking at a very small public investment that's matched many times over by private developers, hotel firms, architect teams. We have two proposals, as I said, and we have a committee that's reviewing those proposals and will give us feedback on whether we want to pursue either. Everything we hear from people planning conventions to our region is that they could bring bigger conventions here if we had 500 rooms right there at the hotel, at the convention center, so that people don't have to take the train or travel back and forth across the river. To us, it's not a big deal, but to someone from out of town, it's an extra trek they have to take. So we think that we have a pretty good pair of proposals, and we'll be hearing soon about whether we're going to pursue either of them. We also hosted Cirque du Soleil this time for the first time. Their show OVO, 90,000 visitors, and a large percent of them took light rail, and that was a really great thing. Then we heard from Cirque du Soleil that they loved having light rail access so that people could take the train to the event. PCPA, Portland Centers for the Performing Arts, is holding their free concerts down on Main Street, right by the Schnitzer Auditorium on Main Street. I think those are on Wednesdays, and through August 19th there will be these free concerts. And then, of course, the zoo concerts are underway already, and you can find out more about those by just going to Oregon Metro or OregonZoo.gov. We've redesigned how we do public engagement. We used to have a committee called the MCCI, which I think was Metropolitan Citizens something committee. I can't remember exactly. But what we found was that it was a small group of people who didn't meet frequently enough to have the kind of real serious input. So we rethought the process, and what we will be doing is convening larger groups of our peers to actually give us a sense of what's the state of the art nationwide in engaging citizens. I mean, we've won lots of awards for Opt-in, our citizen online tool that I think many of you know about. We thought we'd have 10,000 people sign up for that. We've had 17,000 to date, and every time we do a survey, we have thousands of responses. But are there new things and better things that we could be doing? And so we will be convening groups over the year that will advise us on how to do better public engagement, including the people from your agencies, from city and county government, as well as people from community groups and communities of color and some of the groups that are not usually at the table or well represented. So that's it for this quarterly overview. As I said, there's a ton going on, and if you have any questions, you know how to reach me, or you can ask me now.
Well, first of all, I want to say I appreciate your coming out. I think we've had more visits from you than any predecessor of your position in the time I've served on the commission.
Yes, I agree.
And I really appreciate these updates that you give us.
You are welcome. I
And
love
I'll
coming
entertain some
out.
questions from the commission, but I want to take an opportunity here. When I made recognitions at the opening at Kanema Park, afterwards I recognized there were two people I didn't recognize. I did recognize you, and I did recognize Brian Vaughn, who does the work. And among the group there, and two of the workhorses, I failed to do so. So I wanted to recognize him at this point, and that's Jim Desmond.
Yeah.
And I think it's Kathleen Brennan Hunter. Is that right?
Yep.
They've been great partners with us in terms of working on this particular project, and so I did want to get them public recognition. I did that by email, but that isn't particularly satisfactory.
They appreciated it. They appreciated the email, and we all loved being there. What a terrific turnout. That
Yes,
was
it
just
was.
great.
Very good. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I want to use this opportunity to make some announcements that'll come later, but we make announcements of things the city does, and it's at the end. Yes, you can leave if you want. Listen, you can listen if you want. I'll make the announcements now because by the time we get to the manager's report and everything, we've lost three-fourths of our audience. We are having concerts in the park on Thursday with Ray Gordon. Movies in the park is going to be on Friday, and that's going to be at Wesley Lynn Park. And National Night Out also is coming up.
Tuesday.
Huh? Tuesday? Next week.
Next week.
Yes. So, you could read my writing, and so I wrote it down wrong. Is that it? Yes. Thank you for catching it. Anyway, I want to make those announcements. They'll probably come at the end, but I wanted to make sure that everybody here knows about those particular city programs.
National Night Out is in Chapin.
Yes.
Is it Chapin? Excuse me. Thank you. And with that, we're going to go on to citizens' comments. And on the docket here, as soon as it comes up, Linda Van Haverbeek, would you please come forward along with Tom Guile?
I'm coming up with a group, so I'll let Linda go first.
Okay.
Thank
Good evening.
Linda Van Haverbeek, member of Oregon City, resident, and I wanted to speak to two issues. One of which is I wanted to thank you for the money that you found for code enforcement, so they can continue city cleanups. Park Place neighborhood is having monthly cleanups the third Saturday of the month, and so we've already in July did a big blackberry cleanup at one of our gateways, and we're going to do a cleanup at our Pioneer Cemetery and the Straight Pioneer Cemetery, and we're going to do some more gateway cleanups through October. And so I went today and pulled weeds even at one of our gateways. So it's really important because we need all the support services, the tools, and the water, and the yard bins for all the landscape material. So thank you. I also want to speak to the issue of my disappointment with you. I'm disappointed. I've known that for many years, at least 2, and I suspect more than that, years that it's been on your agenda and high in your list of goals to get a library. And I am very disappointed that we are not farther along in this process. This year I'm the president of the Library Foundation. I just keep changing jobs, And we really, even though we've been told we can go ahead, because of people's trust in you, we cannot go ahead and start raising money until we have a site.
Right.
And you're making it really hard for us. We want to raise $1 million for you. So get a move on it, please.
Thank
We want to
you.
help you do that. All right, do it. Thank you. We would love to.
Linda, I wanted to mention that Commissioner Smith and I, when we were down there at the opening of the roundabout, it was mentioned that in that construction and the re-ramping, the Straits Pioneer Cemetery is going to be more clearly visible, and that's really nice, because anybody drives by there unless they see a sign or something,
Right.
they won't see it.
I don't know if you took time, but that sidewalk's terrible.
Yes.
So we're supposed to get some bark mulch delivered, and I don't know how they're going to get it over there to get it delivered.
So it's another benefit of our jug level project.
Yes,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
So
we're going to be cleaning up the fence and painting it and putting some mulch down in August.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have now Tom Guile and Bill Daniels.
Well, can I bring my committee up here?
Okay, yeah, go ahead and announce who your committee
I
is
guess
and
they're
bring
gonna
them up.
sit
Okay. If they disagree with you, they can speak up.
Yeah, they can. They won't. Actually, I'm here tonight as acting chair of the CIC, or acting as the chair of the CIC, so I'd like to have, I've already asked for the normal 10 minutes you might give a chair of a neighborhood association, so
Agreed, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So this is very impromptu. We didn't get on the schedule because we worked late until last night. I kind of had the schedule that I thought the first meeting of the commission was next week, so I thought we'd have a chance to talk to our CIC first and then bring these in. But because of the scheduling being tonight, I thought it'd be best to do this tonight. So anyway, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners and the rest of the staff. And I'm going to read this to make as precise as possible. I come before you this evening as Chair of the Citizens Involvement Council with a brief report and some good news. For those who are watching on cable and unaware of what the Citizens Involvement Council is, Goal 1 of the 2004 Oregon City Comprehensive Plan is based on citizen participation and to provide an active and systematic process for citizens and public involvement, both in the Neighborhood Association and the Citizens Involvement Council, the Assembly, that's the Assembly of all the Neighborhood Association representatives. We have 12 neighborhood associations within the boundaries of Oregon City, and those can be found on the city website under Neighborhoods, along with related information for each neighborhood association, including the contacts, and within your local association, who the leaders are and what the meeting dates are. The Citizens Involvement Council meets regularly here in City Hall chambers on the first Monday of each month, excluding holidays. The meetings are open to any members of the public who wish to attend. As the chair of the CIC for the past 2.5 years, I've witnessed some marked involvement and responsibilities in our council. For instance, each meeting the city has forwarded on to us developers and others wishing to present new ideas and concepts to the Planning or City Commission. On behalf of our citizen members, we appreciate that opportunity to communicate directly with those presenters in order to provide appropriate and current information to our neighborhood membership. Additionally, at each meeting, we have enjoyed the presence of the Public Works Director, who has kept us informed of projects that affect our neighborhoods and the city as a whole. This has been very productive. Our meetings have been televised on local cable and are now also available on the city's website for public viewing and record keeping. We have also moved to police ourselves by voting in a change to our own CIC bylaws a few months back to allow for neighborhood disputes to come before the CIC rather than before the City Commission. One of my main goals and the reason for this presentation tonight is to review and update the Neighborhood Association bylaws template. In the beginning, a long time ago, a generic template was created for all neighborhoods. Over time, and as better comprehension has occurred as to the operations in each neighborhood, some neighborhood associations have made changes to their bylaws to adapt to current situations, while some bylaws have just stayed the way they were initially. About a year ago, it became apparent to the City Commission and the City Attorney that our current neighborhood bylaws contain some nebulous definitions and flaws that needed updating and better defining. In a decision document by the City Attorney, he addressed the need for more clarity in those bylaws. We were directed by the City Manager to address this concern and provide the City with an updated bylaws template. Therefore, a CIC subcommittee was formed by the approval of the CIC neighborhood representatives. This was several months ago. The volunteers on that committee came from various neighborhoods, and they're here with me this evening, including Tom O'Brien, Kathy Hogan, Alice Watts, Michael Berman, the downtown representative, and myself. We began the process over 6 months ago. The process involved reviewing all the current neighborhood association bylaws to discover similarities and differences. We then compared those to the initial template provided by the city. This new bylaw template is the compilation of many neighborhood bylaws, taking the best and most comprehensive approach from each. Not one neighborhood had a bigger influence than another. As a group, we put together an initial initially updated bylaws document. We then reviewed that multiple times, making additional changes as needed, up till late last night. We have now arrived at what we believe is the most thorough set of bylaws for our neighborhood associations. In organizing these bylaws, we made every attempt to make the wording as legal but as readable to any citizen as possible. They got to understand what's in those. So we clarified authorities and responsibilities of elected officers and steering committee members. We clarified neighborhood association assets and the responsibilities of such, banners, things like that. We clearly defined the roles of elected officers, listing all the duties and responsibilities as standardized in most of the other bylaws. We directed all neighborhood associations to provide agendas, minutes, and other important neighborhood decisions to the city CIC liaison for public record. We also clarified neighborhood association boundaries, membership, and voting rights of those members. We added a full article section on the election of officers. There was nothing in the documents before how you elect people, how you account for that. We expanded the accountability and grievances section to provide for neighborhood membership to address concerns regarding their officers. Before, there wasn't anything to that effect. So therefore, tonight, we present to the City Commission, I believe you all have them, the City Manager and the City Attorney, our best concerted effort for a new template of neighborhood association bylaws for your review, changes, whatever, adoption, and endorsements to our CIC and to our neighborhoods. As the mayor is aware, after attending one of our CIC meetings, unless directed by the city, some neighborhood leaders may be reluctant to change anything unless directed to do so by the city. I should note that these bylaws are not a reaction to any prior situations or politics, but are simply updating and addressing the rights and responsibilities for all citizen membership and their respective neighborhood associations. So special thanks to our Bylaws Committee, and thank you, Mayor and Commissioners and others, for your time this evening. And we understand that we have September Labor Day off on that Monday, so we thought this would give you a couple of months to, the city attorney, to review them and see if there's any additions, deletions, or changes. So we have a couple of months till after next Monday's our next CIC meeting, but a few months after that, if we can get them, we'll discuss them with our own membership.
So we can see these presented if we want, if we come to the CIC meeting
Correct.
on Monday. Then
Monday we'll give them to them because they haven't had a chance to see them, but it's nothing we're voting on because until the attorney takes a look at them, sees if the language is correct, if we've addressed everything, it doesn't make any difference. And it's not something that our CIC is going to vote on necessarily because we had addressed this since the very beginning. It's their right in their neighborhood to decide whether they want to adopt them or not and make any changes. It's a process. And so we're not saying you have to or do this. It's just these are a template that the city has said is approved or said is okay. And then, but if the city endorses that these look appropriate and it defines boundaries and who can vote and things like that, then I think it would help encourage some of those leaders of their neighborhoods to at least take a look at them with their constituents and say, okay, maybe we should incorporate some of these into our existing bylaws.
So you're looking at standardizing.
Standardizing, but you'll notice if you have that copy, several areas, we put boxes out to the side that say this section is up to each NA to determine, like when their meetings are, or number of steering committee members, or those things are up to each individual. This is more standardizing that the boundaries for membership are the boundaries set by the city and by the neighborhood association map that is currently. We even took off the date of the map, saying that it's whatever is currently with the city on the website and things like that. And again, just trying to give some more guidance where there wasn't any before.
Right.
Any of the members that are part of the committee that want to address this, please come on forward.
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Okay, very good. Anybody else that is a member of the committee before we proceed on with the rest of the people we have on our agenda? Well, hearing none, well, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very happy with this.
That's a goal that's finally off my plate.
And you said so many nice things about us, too. I appreciate it.
I'm going to have to read that again. Sorry for the impromptu notice to come in, but we were excited when we got these done last night, and again, wanted to give you as much time as possible to review them.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Can you tell me when the officers for the CIC change hands?
It's every 2 years, and that will be, why, are you anxious for me to leave?
I just got confused and I wanted to have it clear.
They're a 2-year period, and my term, I filled in the first year was for Damon Mabey when he resigned, and then I've had my own 2 years, and that's up in December, and I hope they don't commit me to that again. And it starts with a new person in January or
That's
whatever
what I couldn't
happens.
remember.
You were there with me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Bill Daniels and William Gifford, please come forward. Go ahead, Bill.
Bill Daniels, McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, Oregon City.
Newly retired, right?
And recently retired.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm here before you once again. You probably remember last month that the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association had passed a motion, and that was a few months ago, to, among other things, besides installing crosswalks, which have been approved by Public Works, to put designated crosswalks across Center Street and Washington Street, in addition to the two existing ones on High Street and at John Adams Street, so that there's a corridor for pedestrian traffic simply on the, it would be on the northern intersections. So there's a corridor from the elevator to the Carnegie Center, including the Ermatinger House on the way, as and other museums and historic interest, and there is a large pedestrian population of tourists. Where I live, I've noticed them. There is definitely an increase of people coming to our fair city. But those crosswalks will be installed sometime this summer, hopefully sooner than later, before the rain comes. And we're here again as a representative of the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association to ask your consideration for direction to the Public Works Department to install 2 stop signs, posts, at the intersection of John Adams and 6th Street. Actually, it would be installed on John Adams to make that a 4-way stop intersection, like its partner to the east on Madison. And, excuse me, thank you, Jefferson. And to, especially with the library there, of course, the community center and our concerts, of course, but just a lot of pedestrian traffic that deserve that kind of a courtesy for people to come to a complete stop. I think in that intersection, a lot of people aren't sure whether they should stop or not. It comes to a rolling stop because there is no stop sign for them. They don't need to stop for pedestrian traffic. They should, but they don't need to. I just want this taken care of. The sooner, the better. We have 4 more concerts, I believe, I really don't see a downside to doing this. So if you consider giving direction to Public Works to make that installation of those 2 stop signs, the Neighborhood Association would appreciate that. I think all of Oregon City would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So I don't think we had a discussion or commented on it last week because I was assuming that staff is working on that, and and a lot of times there's responses from staff that we would think of, and so I don't know where we're at on that. But a question that does come to my mind, I think, I'm trying to think what street it is. On the other side of 7th Street, there's a 4-way stop there where there never was one, and I was all of a sudden shocked that there was a 4-way stop there. I don't know what intersection that is. It's 8th and...
JQ, isn't it JQ?
Yeah. So we're doing it in other places, so and in other places that don't necessarily, to me, feel as much as a pedestrian corridor as this does. So I'm trying to understand what the reasoning is for that and where we're at on this, and if it's, I mean, the only thing that comes off the top of my head is just probably a discussion with the fire department, because the fire department's right there. I don't know if that's part of it. So.
Before John gets into that, with all respect to the citizen that's here, this is not a policy decision necessarily for the commission, so it's something that our engineers would generally look at, and I believe in the past they have. Of course, things change sometimes, and pedestrian loads change on given intersections, and there's usually warrant requirements. So if the commission wants, I can have Mr. Lewis talk about that now, or we can...
Well, can I make a comment? I've been in the McLaughlin neighborhood 5 years. I know since that 5 years, we've been asking for that.
Yes.
And I just don't see why it's taking so long. It is a real hazard there.
Well, again, it's sort of putting the director on the spot because
Right.
I just don't know if there's if there's going to be a response, or are we going to hear this every week? I mean, that's all I'm asking. I don't need to hear the whole.
Yeah, it hasn't come to me directly, but I've been here at the meetings when it's come up. So I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
It'd be
Jeff.
nice if it would have gone to the city
I'm not
manager.
putting you on the spot, John.
That
I know
would've
that
been
you're...
nice.
No, that's fine, and I know Bill well, so we chat from time to time about things, so it's not a real problem. Couple things. I did hear last meeting was my first meeting as the interim, and I did hear the request, And in the process, I knew that there had been some engineering analysis that had happened not very long ago, maybe a year ago. I didn't recall the details of that, and that was some work that Nancy had done and were in her files. So I requested that, and I just recently got those and have printed them, haven't studied them yet, but they're close. I did want to look at that analysis because I do believe just placing stop signs requires some warrants,
Yes.
and at times can become problematic. We don't want to create a bigger problem than what we have already. So that's kind of my response. I intend to look at that, intend to kind of get back to you. The other piece that you mentioned was the crosswalks along High Street along 6th Street between High Street and John Adams. And that has also come up before, and I know Nancy did commit to doing some improvements there, and we talked about that. The response that I had was, though both of those projects are planned for pavement, not this summer, but next summer. And the cost involved with placing a crosswalk, it's a fair amount of labor and a fair amount of materials. And because even if we place paint versus a thermoplastic lay-down kind of material, it's a cost. It's more cost for time when we're painting than it is, and more cost for materials when we're placing thermoplastic. So I told Nancy, and I thought this message was made clear to you, Bill, but maybe not, that we shouldn't do that work until we do the paving project, which is scheduled for next summer. And so that was kind of where I was headed with that plan, as opposed to paving it. We're not paving those streets this summer. We're paving them next summer.
We had not heard that.
Okay. So hopefully that's acceptable to the neighborhood. And the stop sign issue is something I need to look at further.
Okay.
And so I can, I suppose, provide an update next meeting.
Thank you.
Do these things normally go to the Traffic Advisory Committee? I presume they do.
I think this one has been to the Traffic Advisory
Right.
Committee, and they saw the engineering study that was done before. I think.
Are we talking about the
I don't
stop
really
signs,
recall
or
the
are we
conclusions
talking
on
about the stop signs?
signs.
Okay.
Yeah, stop signs.
Okay.
Crosswalks did not go before the Transportation Advisory Committee, but Nancy did commit to those, and I fully intend to follow through on that. It's just we do it in a fiscally sustainable method, I guess. So.
Well, it's on your agenda to do.
Yes.
So that's good.
And signs too. It's just a sign or two signs in this case. We've finally got some paving weather. We're trying to, so the same crews that put in signs do paving,
Right.
manage the slurry
Right.
seals, do all those kinds of things. So, but I hear the concert's concerned. So maybe there's something we need to do sooner. But I'll look at it.
Thank you.
Okay. But just, will you be able to report back to us at the next meeting?
Next week.
Yeah.
Or next
2
meeting.
weeks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Can I just make a comment about crosswalks? I just want everybody to understand, just because the crosswalk is there, it doesn't mean the car's going to stop. So it could be a false sense of security. So please look, because cars don't always stop for pedestrians. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll follow with a different comment. It took me a long time. In fact, I wasn't the one that got it done, so I don't want to take credit on the being city council, but we had a crosswalk there on 12th and Washington that was put in. It eventually went to the Traffic Advisory Committee and actually brought in a consultant. That same argument was put forward. However, what happens when there's not a crosswalk there and it is a heavily used pedestrian, the pedestrian will remain on the curb. The cars won't see
stop.
really that the person's there. If the person feels enough confidence just to step off the curb, there's a far greater chance the car is going to stop.
Right.
And so that's something to be looked at. In that particular intersection, of course, cars are generally not going very fast like they are in Washington, but
Right.
we'll be looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
William Gifford, it's your turn.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, I want to take a second, first of all, as Secretary of the CIC, to salute the work that was done by the Bylaws Subcommittee. I hadn't seen that result. I'm anxious to look at it, and looking forward to reviewing it with the CIC on Monday. Secondly, I wanted to take just a moment and report on a chance encounter, both amicable and felicitous, with our beloved mayor, Commissioner Roth. Yeah. Not so fast, Roth. Not so fast.
I hope for not at least 2.5 years.
Commissioner Roth and I ran into each other at a local grocery store, and we were chatting about the last encounter a couple of weeks ago about her response to the annexations and that vote. And I got the air cleared a lot, and it was a good exchange. And I wanted to very much appreciate you reaching out and explaining where you're coming from, and you mentioned that you might bring it up, and I wanted to make sure. I never got an answer specifically as to
Right.
what your position is on annexations in general and on those two emergency annexations. And I know that that's on the agenda tonight, so I didn't mean to bring that up, but I just wanted to say that I very much appreciated the time to chat with you about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to address what you had asked me last time?
I think it's appropriate.
Okay.
If you feel like.
Well, there
You
were...
got a minute and 20 seconds. It's time.
Please, right?
Go quick.
You're a commissioner. Take as much as you want.
I am concerned about those two parcels creating islands like David talked about, being little things sticking out there. We are receiving fees for these things being done, and they will be paying sewer bills. And my last one was, you had said that you didn't think I was representing the people of Oregon City in this. And I think that I'm very much representing the people of
I don't
Oregon
recall
City.
saying that, but
Yeah.
okay.
Very much representing the people of Oregon City in that they've turned down those annexations twice. And so,
Once?
yes, well, that area,
Big,
but it's still in that
it's not
area.
apples, it's apples and oranges.
Not as far as I'm concerned. It's the same area, and I think that going along with what people have voted is representing those people. So those were my reasons.
Thanks.
Okay. That adoption of the agenda, does anybody have anything to pull off the consent agenda?
No.
Hearing none, we'll go on into our public hearings in which we're talking about proposed annexation of 11.93 acres to City of Oregon City. Tony Conoco, this is not the point. This is the point.
It's not clear whether this is a quasi-judicial land use hearing, but I'm going to be cautious and give you the usual stuff that I would in any land use hearing. First of all, I wanted to ask if any of you have had any ex parte contacts on this matter.
No.
No.
Okay. And has anybody got either a pecuniary interest or anything that would prevent them from doing a fair decision?
No, but I work across the street.
Okay. This is, I'm again taking a cautious view, and I'll assert that it is a quasi-judicial land use matter, and that there are applicable criteria that are contained in the staff report. If anybody wants me to read them, I'll be thrilled to do so. Participants must address themselves to those criteria or any other criteria they believe applicable. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to allow other parties or you as the decision makers the opportunity to respond to those asserted criteria would preclude review by the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals on that criteria. And I think we're ready to go.
Mr. Conoco, do you... Oh, excuse me, it won't be you. Excuse me, Peter Walter.
Thank you, Mayor Neely. I'm Pete Walter, Associate Planner, and I'll be presenting tonight's item to you. This is a proposed annexation of 11.93 acres at 19314 South Beaver Creek Road, file number AN 12-03. The applicant is Robert Price, who is here tonight, and he's representing the owner of the property, the Norma Hochhalter Trust. And Ken Hochhalter cannot be here this evening. The parcel in question abuts Beaver Creek Road. It's just on the east side of the Beaver Creek Road. It's kind of a flagpole-shaped property. It is an area that has been within the Oregon City's urban growth boundary since 1979. Was brought in with the initial bound of urban growth boundary expansions. And it has a comprehensive plan designation of industrial as opposed to FU10, which is our future urban area. Subsequently, it was preceded the concept planning requirement of Metro and has that comprehensive plan designation already. The area was considered as part of the Beaver Creek Road concept plan area, and the applicant discusses the Beaver Creek Road concept plan in their application. However, the Beaver Creek Road concept plan is not adopted and does not affect the rezoning of this property. The applicant has prepared a detailed application that includes a transportation impact analysis and an analysis of the Oregon Transportation Planning Rule. And I'm just briefly going to summarize some aspects of the application. Annexations are reviewed against the city's criteria for annexation or factors for annexation, and in order to be approved and forwarded to the voters by the City Commission, they need to show a positive balance of factors. They also review them against the Metro boundary change criteria in Chapter 3.09 of the Metro Code, and we review them for conformance with the city's comprehensive plan and public infrastructure plans as well. So some of the details about the site. It's one tax lot. It is contiguous with the city on the west and to the north. It consists of one house with some outbuildings. There are no wetlands or water resources on the site. There is a grove of trees in the northeast corner of the site. There's a very large power line easement across the south side of the property, and within that easement, development potential is very limited except for things like roads and parking areas, though no development is proposed at this time. It has direct access to Beaver Creek Road, is directly across the intersection from Clackamas Community College with Claremont Drive. And if developed, then that intersection, which is currently a signalized intersection, will become the fourth leg of as a signalized intersection. The public sewer line that is in Beaver Creek Road is a 8-inch public sewer, private sewer line that belongs to the high school. The public sewer line is 485 feet to the north. The water line in Beaver Creek Road is 8 inches, and storm facilities are pretty rudimentary at this point in time, consisting of ditches. So the area was in the urban growth boundary prior to 2002 and does not require adoption of the Beaver Creek Road concept plan in order to develop under a zoning and the zoning that is specified in the city's zoning code for an area with a comprehensive plan designation of I industrial is campus industrial. And it is under that zoning designation that the applicant's traffic engineer prepared a hypothetical traffic impact analysis, and in your packet you can see that the peak hour trip generation for their development scenario would be about 292 peak hour trips developing from two campus industrial type buildings and so none of that is proposed at this time. They just have done that analysis in order to show compliance with our transportation system plan. They also have included a transportation planning rule analysis based on the most recent amendments to the transportation planning rule, which provide that a property such as this, which has a comprehensive plan designation, whose designation is already adopted within your transportation system plan, can show compliance with the transportation planning rule. And this property is compliant with the transportation planning rule. There would be further analysis done if there was a development proposal on the property that would look at specific trip generations and that sort of thing. However, that has not been proposed at this time. So The findings that we prepared in the staff report talk about this in much detail, and we talk about how the property may be rezoned to CI Campus Industrial following approval of the annexation by the voters of Oregon City. This is an aerial photo of the property showing how the parcel configuration looks. The city boundaries are contiguous on the north and west sides there, and so it would create, and on the south, so it would create no islands, and it would be a very logical annexation to the city boundary. This shows it slightly better. This is a map showing the zoning of the property within the city, as well as the county zoning. So to the north is Zone Campus Industrial. Across Beaver Creek Road, you've got the public zoning for the Clackamas Community College, and to the south is Campus Industrial as well.
Is that a residential property up there? There?
The yellow is a residential property.
And that's there?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
that's Thayer Estates. So this slide indicates the 7 factors that the City Commission must consider, including for annexation, including adequacy of access to the site, conformity of the proposal with the city's comprehensive plan, adequacy and availability of public facilities and services to service potential development, compliance with applicable revised statutes in Chapter 222 and Metro Code 309, any identification of any natural hazards or significant adverse effects on open space or natural resources due to urbanization of the subject property at the time of annexation, and lack of any significant adverse effects on the economic, social, and physical environment of the community by the overall impact of the annexation. And the Planning Commission has reviewed the application and determined that these factors have been met, and subsequently have recommended for you that
Can I
the...
ask you a question
Sure.
on that?
Mhm.
The Planning Commission voted 401. Do you know what the one was?
It's an abstention by one of the commissioners, and they didn't specify why.
Okay.
May I ask a question also?
yes.
If you go back 2 slides to the
Sure.
map, where is that water going to come in? Is it coming in from Thayer Road
Well,
or sewer? What?
at this time, it's difficult to say where any water hookup would come from, but the water line in Beaver Creek Road is the 8-inch, so that would be a logical main.
I thought
and
you said
then-
that belonged to the high school.
Well, the sewer line.
The sewer line, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the one I'm
yeah,
concerned
yeah.
about. Does it
And,
have,
sorry.
does it have to go through anyone else? Well, obviously, it's going to have to go through other properties if it comes off of Thayer, right?
Well, I think typically what they like to do with development is loop water lines, and that can be done based on a proposal within the development on the subject site.
I think
yeah.
the question was about sanitary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sanitary would come down Beaver Creek Road most
Yeah.
likely.
Okay.
Yeah, you would
Okay.
definitely want to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And so the Planning Commission recommended approval of the annexation based on their determination that it met the factors for annexation, and have recommended that the City Commission adopt the staff report with exhibits and the attached proposed findings, reasons for decision, and recommendations in Exhibit 9. Those recommendations are provided in your packet, and they specifically talk about the various service districts that would be connected to Oregon City and disconnected from other service districts. I can go into detail about those if you would like, but otherwise I'll be prepared to answer any questions you have. If the annexation is approved tonight based on the land use decision, staff will bring back a resolution for you on, let's see, when are we coming up for? 2 weeks' time, to forward the annexation to the voters of Oregon City with the intention of meeting a election date of November 6th. but that will be a separate resolution.
We'll go ahead with the public hearing. We'll first of all invite the applicant to come forward if you wish to speak.
Mr. Mayor, while Mr. Price is coming up, this is a hearing on the record and limited to the issues raised before the Planning Commission.
Mr. President.
Mayor Neely and members of the commission, my name is Robert Price. I'm an independent consultant hired by the Hochhalter Trust to process this particular application. As Mr. Walter said, Ken Hochhalter, who is the trustee and a member of the family, isn't here tonight because he got married yesterday. And he started his honeymoon today.
Well, congratulations.
And there was no way he was going to be here tonight.
I bet not.
And at the age of 68, getting married again after a long hiatus is something to be happy about, I think. Mr. Walter gave an excellent summary of our application, and I won't go into too much detail about it. We did address, as he said, the Beaver Creek Road concept plan, just as if it had been adopted, because someday we think it will be.
Right.
And this property can be an important part of the North Employment Campus area. Did I get that right? And so we would envision future development being based on what's in the Beaver Creek Road concept plan when it's adopted. And that's fine with us. We don't have a problem with that. We expect that it would be zoned campus industrial. We're not talking about any residential here. It's strictly industrial to add to the city's industrial land base. We think it would be a valuable addition to the city's industrial land base. If you noticed the shape of the property and the fact that there's a large BPA easement across a portion of the property and a little woodland up in the northeast corner, and when you factor in the buffer that will be required around the woodland and staying out of the BPA easement, of the 11.9 acres of this property, only 6 is actually developable. So it isn't as good as it seems, but it can be very useful. And with direct access to Beaver Creek Road and water and sewer nearby, it's an excellent parcel for future industrial development. We recognize it isn't going to happen tomorrow, but we're just simply trying to get the property annexed, get it positioned. There have been a couple of inquiries about the site already from interested parties. So we're encouraged by the fact that maybe there is some development interest going on out there. Again, as Mr. Walter said, we've addressed all of the criteria for the city. We addressed Metro's 3.09. We've addressed ORS 222. Did the whole transportation planning rule thing, which, by the way, was revised, and there's a different angle to it right now. But we did everything that we needed to do. It's been fully reviewed by your staff and went to the Planning Commission, and for some reason there was one abstention, and don't know why, but nevertheless there were 4 who voted in favor of recommending approval to this body here. And we hope you take that under advisement favorably. And I think at this point I'll cease babbling on and answer any questions you might have.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and ask the first question, I guess. Maybe a couple of them. The BPA easement, if you had BPA approval there, perhaps some things could be used for parking or something, or is that true?
And that's
So it's not unusable to necessarily to whoever might develop it for what
That's
purpose?
true.
Okay.
Yeah, non-structural items,
Right.
like parking, open space, things like that, can't build underneath it.
Now, you were mentioning a buffer around the woodland. The woodland protected, or is it just not the intent to develop it at this point?
I don't believe it's a protected woodland, I'm not sure. But in any event, I think the natural resource requirements would see some kind of buffer around that woodland. We wouldn't build right up to the edge of it.
Okay, I don't know if that's a requirement of the city or not. I'm getting, with his negative shaking of his hand, I think Tony Conkle's agreeing with me on that. I just want to make sure that we're...
It's not a natural resource overlay district, is it, Pete?
No, it's not. If you were to have a site plan and design review application before you tomorrow, and a grove of trees was there, they would be required to be protected or mitigated under the city's tree protection code.
Right. I know the concept plan is not approved. However, this is not, and I'm asking actually for staff on this one. It is not inconsistent with the proposed concept plan. Is that correct?
I guess, the response to that is that the proposed concept plan is not adopted.
I understand that, but it's not inconsistent. It's not inconsistent.
It's an industrial employment zone that's up there right now.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I guess we're going to open it to public comment. So thank you, and afterwards you'll be welcome to come out to respond to any comments that the public might have. Thank you. So opening the public hearing. No, I don't see anybody coming forward to make comments. In which case, I'll close the public hearing and open it to the commission.
I'll start.
Go ahead, hit your button.
I
Dawn.
thought I...
Just- Okay.
Now I can do it. On the application part 2, page 3, I think it's land use and planning. It says the zoning is future urbanization 10 acres. Is that what I'm reading, and what does that mean?
It means there's a 10-acre minimum lot size on the property.
Oh, okay. All right. And right now it's zoned industrial.
It's planned industrial. It doesn't have, that's right. So you'd have to bring the zoning in accordance with the plan. And that's not yet done. That's one of the things that annexation would do.
Okay. All right.
So our comprehensive plan has industrial, but because it's in the county, it has the county urban 10-acre minimum holding zone, all of the properties.
So if it is annexed in, then it comes...
Corresponding zoning with that is campus industrial.
Okay.
We have a two-system, a comp
Right.
plan, very general,
Right.
zoning more specific.
Yes. Okay. I just want to be clear on that.
Any other comments?
I see the neighborhood association supports it so
Yes.
far, as far as they've had a chance to discuss it, so that's positive. I think it's positive that there's a chance to add more industrial land and more job growth in the city.
Okay, I'll request to speak. I just wanted to kind of go back to the proposed concept plan. The desire was to have campus industrial land next to the campus of the Clackamas Community College general employment land across from the high school. And the reason why is we saw the great opportunity for synergism between the college programs, their manufacturing program, perhaps even their automotive program, in terms of internships, in terms of the college being able to perhaps develop programs depending on what the industrial use might be. And it was one of the things that I strongly supported in that process. So I'm pleased that we have this coming in. I think it's been kind of a disappointment to us that we've had, even before this comprehensive plan, we have had lands that have come into the urban growth, into the city years ago that had the the industrial designation, and nothing much has happened to them. But and part of it is that it's not shovel-ready, but I think if there might be some kind of critical point at which there's sufficient land that you might in fact have developers that actually become interested in that land in general. So I'm going to ultimately support this coming before us in the form of a resolution to be taken to the voters. And I just would simply state at this point, it's not a conflict of interest because I supported the proposed concept plan for that area anyway. I'm probably going to be, if it goes to the voters, I'm probably going to be actively participating in the effort as an individual for this land to be annexed, not as a mayor. But I think it's very important to the community college, to the high school, and for potential job creation in the city in general. Any other comments?
Well, I would agree with you, and there is one thing that we do have that in our charter that it is, mandatory the voters of the people kind of decide. So I have no issue pushing this forward. One of the concerns I have is later on in the agenda we have a couple of emergency annexations, and I'm afraid that they're going to get all lumped together, and I would hate to see that happen. So I would probably be, as the mayor, actively supporting this.
As an individual?
As an individual, just so you know.
Mr. Mayor, just so you know where you are on this,
yes.
You don't have any final action here as you do with the next two items. If you are of a mind to send this to the voters, then you should give direction to staff and us to prepare the necessary ballot materials to bring back to you at your next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we have concurrence on that?
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it to
You should probably make a motion.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Well, somebody want to make a motion? Reflect that as too early in the game.
No. If you are of a mind to do it, again, this is your decision. And if you are satisfied with the staff report, you should indicate your agreement with the staff report and direct staff and council to prepare the material to send this annexation to the voters at the November election.
Yes. And in this case, we don't have that before us.
You don't have it before
The
because-
motion is direction to bring
That's
it
correct.
forward.
So can I just move
So
to...
moved. Say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
Findings?
The findings will be in the order that you see.
I guess,
Go ahead.
could I have like 2 minutes to talk to my attorney?
Absolutely. We got a discussion here after a motion's been made by Commissioner Mum and seconded by Commissioner Pauly, but now it's time for some additional discussion. Not during the, well, I don't think we should do that before we get through our motion.
Got it.
Okay.
But nobody will know what we're talking about when we're taking our breaks, so that would be very good. Okay, we're going to have something posed to us, I think.
The planning director prefers, and I, after speaking with him, concur, that you adopt an order orally that approves the annexation on the basis of the staff report, if you're satisfied with that. And then we will bring back the material. The idea is to bifurcate the decision, to have a decision tonight on the land use part, and then have a separate decision on sending it out to the voters.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the...
Can I get clarification just one more time,
Yes.
please? Because there's a motion on the floor.
Yeah, we'll withdraw.
So we have to withdraw?
I would prefer you withdraw it.
Okay, so I will withdraw my first.
I withdraw my
Okay.
second.
And so what you're going to do is approve the annexation so that you will have an order on that tonight, which is an appealable order, and separate that out from the issue of sending it to the voters, which you'll have at your next meeting as a separate item.
What this boils down to is, should it pass, the commission is approving the annexation.
That's correct.
And then, of course,
voters.
we have voter-approved annexation,
Yes.
so then it would go to the
It would
voters.
not
So do I
be
have
final.
a motion to approve the annexation?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Okay, again, Commissioner Mum has made the motion and seconded by Commissioner Pauly. Call for any further discussion?
I'm sorry.
Any further, we'll take a look at it.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
It's official.
Oh, that's
official.
right. Oh, that's
Now
right.
we gotta wait.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
You're welcome.
We have this process. I don't see I'm able to vote yet.
No, it's not
That's
there
what
yet. We're
There we go.
Okay.
okay. There we go.
Okay,
We're waiting on the mayor.
Okay, it's unanimously approved by the commission. Commission approves the annexation request.
Okay.
I have a request for a break. I want to convene here at 35 after 8 o'clock.
Thank you.
Wow, you're generous.
We're going to reopen the commission meeting, and we're to resolution number 2124, resolution regarding annexation proposal AN 1202, and referring the legal voters of Oregon City the question of approving the annexation proposal. Commission report, please. Report to us. Was that going to be Mr. Cockle?
Yes, sir. Thank you. On the July 18, 2012 City Commission approved annexation 1201, adopting the staff report and findings, reason for decision and recommendation. So tonight we are bringing back the resolution setting a ballot date to send to the legal voters of Oregon City of November 2nd, 2012. So by adopting Resolution 1223, you will be setting that date for this annexation question.
And just to go back to it, this is an emergency resolution.
Is an emergency annexation?
Right.
Yes.
And that generally occurs when we have septic failures.
Correct.
And within, 300 feet of the city boundaries?
Within 300 feet of existing city services.
Right, city services. And if somebody wants to speak to it, or if the commission, if somebody public wants to speak to it, you can come on the floor. This is not a public hearing. But any of the commissioners, we had this before us before. Is there any other questions?
Nope.
I see no comments from the citizens. So we'll open it up for a motion. I can't make one.
Hold on.
I move.
Oh, she already did it.
Yes.
I move to
Oh.
Adopt
Adopt
resolution regarding annexation proposal.
And what,
1223.
it was a little confusing what happens here. We have this, whoops, that disappeared.
There it is.
That's really confusing.
The motion,
23, a resolution.
we're pushing buttons at the same time we're making the motion the second, and at the moment, the motion was there and the seconder was there, but the motion is made by Carol Pauly, the seconder was
Second, yeah.
was by Commissioner Smith, and now I don't seem to be able to vote.
Process.
And here we have it, okay. And I think I beat somebody this time. With that, we have 4 votes in favor and 1 abstention. So the resolution passes. And on the floor again, we have before us
I
another.
think we need to state,
Who was the upset?
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Commissioner Roth is saying
And it was
consistent with
the abstention was Commissioner Roth. Thank you. Okay, and then we're going to another resolution, another emergency annexation, Resolution 1227, submitting a proposal initiative to the charter as election of the votes.
We're going to be on Resolution 1224. Will be
Oh, did I mess up here?
Oh.
Yeah, look at 7B.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Resolution 20.24. Is that right?
Right.
correct.
Resolution regarding annexation. It is emergency annexation request.
There we go.
And I read the wrong one, but in any case, basically the same kind of issues involved here.
Correct.
Anybody want to speak to this particular piece of property? Hearing none? Do I hear a motion? Or do I see one?
Motion to approve resolution number 12-24. Thank you.
And again?
21-24.
No,
12-24.
12-24.
There's the typo on the agenda. It's
Oh, that's right. There
correct
is
on
a
the
typo
commission
on the
report.
agenda. That's what's happened to
the
us.
title's in.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
With that, I have a motion made by, and now our motion's disappeared again. So we'll wait for the vote. But again, the motion was made by Commissioner Mumm, and President Smith made the second, and here comes the votes. And they haven't come up yet. The vote is similar, four in favor, and Commissioner Roth abstains. Do we really need this thing? It takes us some
You'll have to wait till Nancy gets back on
He would
August
have
6th.
not said that.
Discussion.
He would not have said that if Nancy was sitting there.
He's testing you, Kelly. It will make a lot more sense once we get it up on the wall.
You know, I haven't seen you give me a stinky eye yet. Now, Nancy frequently gives me a stinky eye, but you don't seem to have that
You just haven't
personality.
caught it yet. We'll eventually have a monitor, and actually it's getting worked on tomorrow. They're going to start the work on that. So eventually we will have a monitor right up here, so everybody will be able to see what you see on your monitors in the audience. So
That would be
it will make sense in a couple more weeks. So just bear with us.
Thank you.
It may make more sense. It doesn't mean it's going to be any faster.
That's right. That's exactly it.
That's true.
Anyway, we have again before us Resolution 1227, a similar resolution, emergency annexation.
No.
No.
No, it isn't either. Submitting I'm sorry, my apology. Submitting a proposed initiative charter, and this is amendment by the electors of the city, and this is the initiative that just a minute we'll get up here. Submitting that would amend the city charter to require voter approval for future urban renewal bond misuses to the legal voters of Oregon City and setting an election date of November 6, 2012. I don't know if that one adjective was necessary or noun was necessary, but anyway. With that, we'll go ahead and let staff speak to this, but I'm not sure that what we have before us is a initiative was provided and actually then was found to have the sufficient number of signatures to get this initiative to the voters, and we're having discussion of who's going to speak to this.
Yeah, I think, Kelly, you should start, and I'll add in as necessary.
Okay.
Right.
The signatures were submitted on July 19th and then submitted to Clackamas County on July 23rd for verification, and they returned the verification to us on July 27th, saying that they had obtained 2,703 signatures that were genuine, and they needed 2,510. So I believe that the resolution adoption is just a procedural adoption at this point.
That's correct.
And just, I think most people who've been following this are aware, the city commission has had to submit, I'll say the city commission has had to submit these proposals before in terms of city indebtedness or bond. The Urban Renewal Commission is another body, and it was not so restrained, and this is an initiative to essentially require the same kind of bonded indebtedness to go to the vote of the people that the city currently has. Is that a fair statement?
It is. What happened is, I think most of you know who were on the commission at the time, was that there was a controversy in January and February of 2011 over allowing indebtedness of the Urban Renewal Commission to go to the voters. There wasn't a way of amending the charter directly to make that happen. Instead, I conferred with bond counsel, and what you have here is a result of our work together, which says that the city must sign off on any urban renewal plan. And the charter amendment says that the city won't sign off on the urban renewal plan unless the vote has occurred, that the economic element has been approved by the voters. So if this passes, effectively, even though you can't bind the Urban Renewal Commission directly. The fact is that the plan that it was adopted and would have to be implemented could not occur until after the voters have signed off on the financing.
We have a couple of people from the public. Do any of the commissioners want to say anything before I
Yes.
invite? Go ahead, Commissioner Munn.
Now, I'm unclear, because what I received was a summary. Is that exactly the wording that's?
The wording is in the resolution. If you look at the resolution.
I did see that.
That is exactly what would,
That's exactly what's going to be.
that is correct.
On the ballot.
Yes, and would be in the charter if it passes.
If it passes. Okay, thank you.
This is
Any other questions from the commission before I invite public comment? Barbara Rankin and Kevin Hunt, would you come forward, please?
I'll have more comments later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Barbara Rankin, Oregon City, Park Place neighborhood. Members of the commission and staff, I want to take this opportunity to thank the voters who supported our efforts to be successful with our right to vote petition. We visited hundreds of homes, and the support and positive feedback we received in appreciation for our efforts was really overwhelming. And it encouraged us to continue a very difficult and arduous task. A frequent topic of conversation was often the mess in the urban renewal area in terms of construction, more construction, traffic direction, parking, all parking almost impossible. And they wondered how the shop owners can survive this. It's going on too long. Many stated they take their business elsewhere to avoid the confusion and the parking situation. Well, we want to be clear that we're not opposed to urban renewal in Oregon City. We're not opposed to any responsible development in our city, whether it be urban renewal or new development. The sole purpose of our petition is to give the voters the right to vote on all bond debt, because at the end of the day, it's their bill to pay, and it's their risk to take when development occurs on projects where there's no tax base. They may not all agree with the city planners and the developers, but they do have a right to their opinion and the right to vote. The people we spoke with were well informed, and we feel they have a right to their opinion. So I want to thank you again for this opportunity to be an advocate for the voters and the taxpayers of Oregon City. Thank you.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Hunt. I live in Oregon City. I'm a member of the Your Right to Vote Committee. I'd like to, it's my understanding that there might have been some questions or confusion by some commissioners about some of the language in the proposal. For example, whether it's retroactive or not. It certainly wasn't intended to be retroactive. We included language that should indicate that it would not be, and I believe the city attorney would agree with me that and in any event, regardless of any constitutional or statutory restrictions against retroactivity, unless the measure itself declared that it was retroactive, it's almost inconceivable that a court would declare it to be so. Some of this turned on what does the word commit mean. I appreciate the city attorney using the phrase signing off, because I think that really does very well explain what we're talking about. So any project that the obviously, this is my interpretation, it's as good as any other citizen who walks up here, and not much more, but our intention here is that any project to which the city or the Urban Renewal Commission rather has already committed or signed off on, we're not trying to say these now have to go before a vote of the people. We're not trying to encumber or obstruct anything that's already happened. There's been also some suggestion I've heard that we're part of a large organization or conspiratorial group that is simply obstructionist, and that's not true. We're not formally affiliated with the anti-light rail people. We're not affiliated with the Selwood Bridge matter. None of that has anything to do with what we're doing. What we're trying to do here is to close what we feel is a loophole in the city charter. Whereas other kinds of bonded indebtedness the people have the right to vote on. They don't have the right to vote on this one. Why is this so important now? I'd like to compare two different charters to you, if I may. We are approaching the 800th anniversary of the Great Charter, the Magna Carta, which literally means Great Charter. That was extracted from King John in 1512 at the ends of pitchforks by the landowners at the time, who were the people who demanded a right to have a say and a right to vote on what happened to their land and what happened to their money and their expenditures. And that became the Great Charter for what ultimately developed into the Constitution of the United States, the rights of Anglo-Saxons and all of this, which is the great foundation of our country. It was the hallmark of democracy for the Western world. Now, I would like to take a look at what we might call a small charter, but a charter that's the one that most directly affects us as citizens, and that is the Oregon City Charter. I'd also like to alert the citizens to what occurred tonight at the 5:30 meeting of the Urban Renewal Commission, which adopted a resolution that reduced the membership of the Urban Renewal Commission, reduced the size of it from 10 to 7. Now, that also the new bylaws also provide that a quorum now will be 4. And of the members of the Urban Renewal Commission, 5 are the U5 elected commissioners, and there's 2 citizens at large. What this means is that at a minimal quorum meeting of the Urban Renewal Commission, a majority consisting of 2 entirely unelected people and 1 elected person can issue urban renewal bonds, can make this commitment, can make this signing off. That is a move against the tide of history. That is a move not only against the foundations of the Great Charter, but against the great popular movements now occurring in the world, whether it's the Tea Party, Occupy Wall Street, the Arab Spring, or other places in the world where people are literally dying in the streets for the right to have a simple vote. That's all we're about, the right to vote. And as my friend and colleague, Ms. Rankin, so aptly put, this is not a vote for or against urban renewal. It's not a vote for or against any kind of projects. If a particular project came up for a vote, Ms. Rankin and I might find ourselves on opposite sides. I certainly hope not, but it could happen. So this is really a ministerial act. Thanks for letting us speak. We want to get the word out to the public about what we're really about, and we look forward to seeing this on the ballot. Thank you.
I just want to make a statement. When you said not elected, you mean not popularly elected.
Appointed by the commission.
Appointed by election by the commission.
Correct.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have William Gifford wishes to speak.
Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City. I am not as eloquent as my friend Mr. Hunt, who was able to cite chapter and verse of history. It seems to me as though the issue that you have before you is not really one for deliberation or rhetoric.
Mm-mm.
The number of signatures were verified, and regardless of the wording, regardless of the reasoning, it deserves to be on the ballot. There's no discussion about that. A concern that I have, of course, is the amount of rhetoric that was exhibited tonight, not so much in the fact that this initiative demands to be on the ballot, but rather in support of the initiative, which I think is a totally different thing. I do not support the initiative. I do support the right for it to be on the ballot. I am diametrically opposed to the position that all bonded indebtedness is the same. I consider that urban renewal bonding, tax increment funding, is such a significantly different tool than other bonded indebtedness that it deserves special consideration, especially in negotiations with developers for investments in our community. And I strongly urge any citizens to look very carefully at the wording in this and realize that although Ms. Rankin states that they are not against urban renewal, this measure would effectively stop urban renewal. It's just that simple. And stopping urban renewal would stop many of the positive benefits that we are able to employ by using that tool. That's all I want to say.
Okay. With that, any discussion among the citizens? Among the commission, I assume if there was a majority no vote, that wouldn't make much difference.
It wouldn't.
Yeah.
You'd still have to go on.
And so, the fact of the matter is, it is simply a process that we go through. It will go to the vote of the people, no matter how individual commissioners vote. Does anybody else want to make any comments? Commissioner Mumm, you indicated you might.
Well, I thought I might, but I'm going to hold my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion? Oh, Commissioner Pauley.
Yes. I think it's important for the citizens to know exactly, what they're voting for. So I just think it's important to clarify this, to educate the voters, because it sounds like a good idea until you peel the layers of the onion. And then it's much deeper than that. Everything's, more complicated when you look at the implications of it. My concern is it taking away our whole economic development department. So I think it's important to look at all the different implications of it. I feel like we're kind of treading water with economic development, and we can choose to sink or swim. I just think it's important to bring the citizens the pros and cons so that they can really decide for themselves. And if that's what they decide, I think that's great. But I think they need to really know how it's going to affect our economic development program, how it's going to look, how it's going to work, and how things will function.
Any other comments? I'm going to go ahead and speak a bit, too. It's not going to close our urban renewal district. We still have tax increment financing coming in, such programs that we have as the storefront improvement grants and so forth. There will be monies to cover this. My major concern, and it didn't go forward for different reasons, but the Center Cow project called the Rivers was a project, for example, that the developers actually invested a great deal of money in terms of doing the study. They even contributed $1 million to the jug handle planning. Had the deal not fallen apart between the developer and the property owner, and had this been in place, I think a developer that would have been willing to do a project there and that would invest that kind of money to get it started would not do so if they felt they would have to wait until bonded indebtedness was approved by the vote of the people. Yes. And so, particularly in areas that are what we regard as true brownfield areas, we've got the Cove and we've got the landfill as an example, any developer is going to have to come up there and invest quite a bit of money ahead of time. And this is going to be a subject of debate. I think there will be groups that will be probably setting forward public forums where this debate can occur on this particular measure, and that's fine. That's the way it should be. So the opinions that have been raised here are ones that can be discussed in public and be part of the public process. So that's the only quick comment I have, and my concern about this particular process going forward. I just don't see we're going to have the development proposals that we would have had otherwise.
Well, isn't that, I don't know, it feels like it's kind of that's the purpose of it. It kind of feels like that to me.
Yeah. So, in any case, with that, we have a motion.
I move to adopt Resolution 12-27, submitting a measure that would amend the city charter to require a voter approval for future urban renewal bond misuses
that's
to
where
the
it's
League of
from.
Voters of Oregon City and setting an election date of November 6, 2012.
The word is issuance, by the way.
It's issuance.
I don't know why
Okay,
that
somehow
it's a typo, another typo.
It's in the ballot title correctly.
Yeah. And we have a second by Commissioner Roth. And with that, we'll go ahead to the vote. And the motions disappeared briefly, and here we go. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, what am I going to do? We'll have it come up. Okay, we have Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Pauley, Commissioner Roth voting yes, Commissioner Munn voting nay, and I abstain. So it's a 3-1-1 vote. We've done this. I don't know. We generally don't. Unless
It passes anyway.
Yes, just a suggestion. Can I tell you what I have in mind?
you go ahead. That's fine.
I just happen to think, because of what you said, Mayor Dodd, and I'm going to, I haven't talked to William yet because there hasn't been enough time, but I'm going to, Tom Guile, they all know who I am. I'm infamous like you, William. What I'm going to suggest...
What city are you from? Are you from Oregon City or outside of Oregon?
North Oregon City. I'm from my own world. Don't go there. I'm going to suggest, based on what you said, that gave me a great idea while I was sitting there. We've done forums on earthquake preparedness, and 4 years ago or 2 years ago, the CIC went together with a group to do candidates forum. But I think to get the proper information out there, I may talk to CIC Monday and see about setting a meeting sometime in the fall where one side has maybe 2 or 3 speakers, almost a debate, and the other side has 3, because we're going to see all kinds
Pros
of
and cons.
pros
Yeah,
and cons in the
that'd be great,
paper and all those anonymous letters.
And get the
So why
truth.
not just have an open debate
Yep.
and let
That's what
Willamette
the
Falls do
voters
it?
deserve. Yep.
So I'm going to ask CIC on Monday if we could do something like that and find a location
I think
that
that's great.
the city staff and other individuals can do it
Well, I
as
don't
well
think
as
city
the-
staff can be involved in it.
But I mean, they can at least give any facts and as well as the other side. But again, have it limit and have a time limit and do something like that. That's a really good debate. That's in a public atmosphere. If you like that, I'll approach CIC with it.
Yeah, that's
you
perfect.
can do
Yeah,
it
I
whether we like it or
it.
not.
Yep.
It was just based on, it was just based on
I think
what you
that's, no, I
said.
think that's great.
Because we're going to hear all kinds of things.
We are.
I'm sure.
Absolutely
I'm sure
correct.
there is going to be a. Whether you wanted to call it a debate, you kind of avoided saying a debate. But the point is, I think there will be plenty of opportunities for the public to hear the different opinions.
And as you know, it's all those anonymous comments that show up in the papers that we never know where they come from and who's saying it. So
It's
let's get the
signed
facts on the
anonymous.
table
That's
for
great.
everyone.
I love
Well,
those
thank you, Mr.
comments.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thanks.
Okay, we have, I believe, we're on the consent agenda, are we not?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, come get where I can vote.
I would like to.
Okay, because it's almost all but Commissioner Munn and Commissioner Smith in most of these cases, as the motion maker and the seconder. Well, it's Kathy Roth.
A beat?
Oh, she took it away from you. No, she didn't. Okay, so scratch that. Moved by Plum and
And then seconded by
Roth.
Commissioner Roth, even though you spoke.
I voted first.
No, I beat you.
And,
2 seconds.
yeah, the consent agenda passes. We'll go now to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wanted to report to the City Commission that our estimates are for the first city celebration that we had more than 5,000 visitors, and more than 3,000 of them rode the elevator.
That's awesome.
I'm one of those, both up and down. So that was a great celebration. It was really, the weather was delightful, and there were lots and lots of variety in the music and the various vendors. With that number of people, we did have 4 parking complaints that we know of,
Yes.
and maybe 2 additional ones that we only partially know about. So as a percentage, that's still less than 1% of the people that had a negative experience. So we're glad of those percentages. If we could pull off all of our celebrations in the
You
city
said
with-
parking complaints?
with 99% satisfaction, we'd be pretty happy. Also, I want to call on Scott Archie. We have news, additional good news about the end of the Oregon Trail site. Scott?
Commissioners, the I believe we sent an email out around about this earlier as well, but just wanted to make sure that you're aware. Clackamas Heritage Partners announced that they have received an additional grant. Actually, it was unsolicited. They received from one of the nonprofit foundations that they've been seeking funding from. The Cabana Fund of the Oregon Community Foundation has granted them $20,000 to utilize towards some type of restoration project at the end of the Oregon Trail site. In conversations with the city, and we've talked about this at some of our prior meetings with you, the commission, that what they would like to propose to do is utilize the $20,000 that they've just received, along with another $20,000 from the prior grant they got for $81,000, and have the hoops painted at the site.
Perfect.
So that's really good news. They just received that recently, and with our recent approval of the agreement with them, they want to get some things going and want to make good on their commitments to the city to do some to invest at the site. So this is one major and very visible way they'd like to do that. So unless the commission has any concerns about any of that, we're going to proceed in coordinating that with them. The hope is that we would be able to do that sometime this calendar year before the wet season hits. We're going to get moving on that pretty quickly. So
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
If I may, the foundation that preceded the Clackamas Heritage Partners is when that foundation was strictly directed to the end of the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. By that time, all the bonds had disintegrated and so forth, and there was discussion of painting the hoops. And it was suggested at that time maybe there's some kind of fluorescent material that could be used so they could kind of glow at night. I don't know if that's possible or not, but oh my gosh.
I'm not sure the neighbors want it.
Many people.
What neighbors?
There could be people seeing those.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. You want people to see them. I mean, that would be the point
Not
of
at 3 o'clock.
Yeah. So, well, it's not going to glow that right. It's going to look ghostly. Well, okay.
Moving on.
But anyway, that was a thought that was presented there, and maybe it has possibilities. Go ahead. No.
Or the like the
I
fire
will
hydrants.
read-
The fire hydrants have, right, John?
Yeah.
Yes.
That little
Yes.
blue paint strip in the street.
He was talking about glowing paint. I think the fire hydrants have. One of my students was painting a fire hydrant one day outside, and they were talking about there's like specks in it of reflective.
Yep. Yep.
So
Shall I
it
resume
exists.
my reports,
It does.
Your Honor?
We-
Okay. Thank you. So I also want to let the commission know that we received a thank you letter from Jane Jarrett, the executive director of the Architecture Foundation of Oregon, several days ago now, almost a week ago. We hosted the foundation here, right here in this chamber, and then Christina Gardner took them on a tour of the promenade and some other notable buildings and structures in Oregon City. And they were very, very interested in the Blue Heron site, so we had big poster boards in here, and we walked them through sort of the general work that we've done on that site, and also made sure that we let them know what the Commission's shared vision with Metro and the county has been so far for the redevelopment of that site. And they were really complimentary, actually, of the values that were identified, those 4 virtues that you hear me talk about all the time. So they were very pleased to hear that, and they're looking forward to maybe the foundation and many of their members who were here are people, architects who've been responsible for some of the largest developments in Oregon, and some that we would consider landmarks, all of us, buildings that we see every day when we go downtown, for example. So also, John Lewis let me know that the slurry seal job that we completed on 8th Street got some overspray on parts of the curb, and some of the crews, you may have gotten a complaint. We got a couple about that, and our crews are going to be down there trying to use various materials to clean that up a little bit. We also continue to have our discussions with the Oregon City School District regarding potential library sites, and we had a really productive meeting with them earlier. The challenge for them is like it is for us, because they don't have a master plan for their overall facilities, but we are interested in the possibility of sharing administrative spaces in the future and how we might save money doing that. And So we're just having really positive discussions with them, but nothing really has materialized yet. We may do some field trips. There is the City of Gresham shares administrative office spaces with their school district, and that has apparently worked out really well. So we're just looking at all those options moving forward. The city, as you know, doesn't have a defined facilities master plan for all of its facilities. And yet we find ourselves in this situation sometimes when opportunities arise and we don't know they're coming. And the school wasn't really thinking about closing these facilities until a few months ago, and now that they have, those could be, they're older buildings, and the scale of school facilities compared to what the city typically thinks about for offices is the magnitude of those campuses seems overwhelming to me, and it's not big enough for them. So it's it's just a different scale. And the buildings are also designed many times. They've been kind of added on over years, but it's a fascinating site, and we're continuing our discussions with them, and we'll have more in the future on that. Also want to hand out a letter. I think you all received this electronically, but I don't think the media or members of the press necessarily. I have a few extra copies, and they're all welcome to those. But this is the letter that I sent to the county offering up to $300,000 of assistance from the city to help with the downtown parking problem, which is, in my estimation anyway, largely the county's responsibility, given the fact that at least 70% of the visitors are there accessing county services. We're the host, and we want to help solve the problem and make more parking there. But we can't do it all alone, but we are willing to put in some money where it's needed. And I think I have one last thing, or a couple last things. I also want to remind you folks in the public as well that the August 7th City Commission work session has been canceled because that's the same night as the National Night Out that is going to be held at Chapin Park from 6 to 9 p.m. So you have a night off from a work session at least. And Katie's going to be sending out an invitation to however many of you might be interested in a tour of McLaughlin House. I know some of you, the mayor took me on my tour with others when I first arrived, but some of you or some of our staff who may be interested haven't been. The Park Service has invited us if we're interested in a tour sometime, so she'll be contacting you about that. And then you know that I'll be on vacation beginning tomorrow until August 13th. And Tony Conkle will be acting city manager during that time. And I think that's all I have.
We promise not to browbeat him very much.
Anyway,
Too bad.
That's my turn.
Oh, one last thing. I went to the Oregon City Farmers Market this afternoon, and I'm a big advocate for the buy local stuff. And I went down there, and I got this beautiful bouquet of flowers for $12.
Nice.
$12 for this. I know you probably can't see how great this is, but I'm going to start my vacation off with somebody in a good mood, I think. And I highly recommend you guys, for that price, you can all stay out of trouble.
I love it.
So,
Are you going to take it in the car with you?
yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm going to take it home right after this meeting. Thank you. That's all I have. And Paul helped me, by the way, pick those flowers.
He's having his vacation off.
It's just a wonderful market. And they also are competing. They have this card, and if you want to vote for your Oregon City Farmers Market as the best farmers market in America, they have a website. There's a website that's www.farmland.org/vote. And you can go there and vote for America's favorite farmers market. And so far, Oregon City is doing really well, I'm told, in that competition. Yeah.
Can we vote? Can we vote multiple times?
I think it's one of those unique situations.
Push that button.
They told me it was like Chicago. You could vote early and often.
Yes. Keep pushing the button.
A couple things. One is that I had received complaints about parking tickets being issued on Saturday when we had the first city celebration. Normally, the meters are not functioning on Saturday. In fact, I think this is the first time it occurred. I wanted to explain the rationale for it, although I don't agree with it. There were there were some of our merchants there see their business drop off when we have these all-day events. So the notion was to get greater turnover. The thing is, I went down there and I would get behind cars going through Main Street, and I think even if a car followed the 90-minute thing and went out, the most likely car to come in would have been somebody going to the First City celebration and not to a merchant. Because, as was pointed out, they got 3,000 people using the elevator, and 2,000 people must have been coming a different way, and a lot of cars were coming through. I did send a memo to the city manager and to the police chief regarding this. The police chief, because code enforcement is under the police chief, and I guess I would feel a lot better if some changes are proposed that maybe we know about them ahead of time, or at least they have a broader chance for being vetted ahead of time. Because I got complaints down there. Wasn't from the people who were getting the tickets. They were actually from residents of Oregon City, but they had friends that came in. And that kind of event, a 90-minute thing, person goes and maybe they want to look at all the artists and so forth. Then they want to eat
Go to lunch.
and go to lunch, and then they want to hear the music. And that can't be done within a 90-minute period. So I hope some broader consideration when some change like that occurs happens.
I think that the earlier we can notice that, the better. I saw your email, Mayor, late this afternoon, and I haven't talked to the chief about it yet. Your follow-up email. So if there's perhaps he can have a little bit more time to look at that.
Sure, no.
Report back to you. I do think they were responding to complaints.
Yeah, I
that's
understand.
the information I
But then
have.
I got complaints based on their response.
And you know, you are trying to strike a balance.
That's the way it
You are
goes.
trying to strike a balance, because if you have complaints from a business that, people are blocking their business, and you're trying to address that, and at the same time you're trying to welcome visitors and have a sort of an open, free parking everywhere you want to go, it's a tough situation, and I think we were going to get complaints from somebody. And if we'd have said, if they hadn't responded to those business complaints, I think we would have gotten, I'm not sure how many we would have gotten on that side of the argument. Maybe 4, maybe more. I just don't know.
Parking's always an issue.
Yeah.
Maybe we could build a parking
I wanted to comment on one thing. One of the things that we
We
did
are-
in terms of the Ermitinger House, I mean, that's all I had to say about that item. On the Ermitinger houses, we did approach the city commission. We approached the mayor and then talked to staff staff people for the different commissioners in Portland, and hoping that they would be able to come up with some support money for the renovation of the Ermitinger House, which is believed to be the place where the coin toss between Pettigrove and Lovejoy occurred that named the city of Portland. They were not able to do so. I was thinking of writing a proclamation that declared that the coin toss was historically incorrect, and actually it was Lovejoy that won. It should have been Boston, but I didn't think that would be very appropriate. But we're continuing to look for funding sources, and I think we're probably about 3/5 of the way there. Are we not, Mr. Archer? I know I'm hitting you off course there, but we have actually secured, including city's contribution, a fair amount of funding to our goal.
About 415,000 is where we're at now. The original stated goal was 750,000, but depending on what the architect finds, and when we get a report from the architect in September, which you'll be receiving at a work session, that cost estimate may, I don't want to get hopes up, but it might be less than that. So we're significantly
We're over half
working
anyway.
towards that. Yeah. And so we won't. I can't say it's 2/3 or 3/4 because we don't know the final cost estimate yet, but we'll know that pretty soon.
When we have that, we'll have a better number to know about closing the gap. And Commissioner Smith has already reminded me that there will be a new mayor to talk
Yeah,
to.
we're not done with Portland yet.
That's right.
We're not done with Portland yet.
You're going to beat the drum a little longer.
I think probably it was a discussion with the
Or
other
Boston,
commissioners,
whatever you want to
because
call it.
I think the commission, their commission makes a decision as a commission in terms of their budget and so
Right.
forth. I think we found the mayor very, very receptive, actually. But But yeah, that's fun. We're gonna have no.
Has anybody
no-
approached Portland, Maine about this for their namesake?
Well, I'd rather do the resolution than approach Boston. The other comment I wanted to make, I think I won't. I'm going to defer to a trip that Commissioner Roth and I, along with my wife, took just yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Just yesterday.
Well, I tried to take it Monday and then Tuesday also.
So that's all I have to speak to. Any of the commissioners want to make a report?
Oh, I'll go ahead. I did try to take the train on Monday. It didn't come. So Tuesday I finally made the train. And I told David if I didn't make the train, I was going to hop a boxcar.
Did you tell him what train and why?
Yes, I'll be there. Union Pacific put on a tour for us to go to. We went down to
Down south.
Woodburn. Yes, that town, yeah. And the mayor of Woodburn was on there, some people from Oregon State University, several people from Union Pacific, and we got to ride in a Union Pacific passenger car, which was very nice, as opposed to the Amtrak that you usually ride in. Learned a lot. We learned about how to read the train signals that are coming up, and braking systems, and what the railroad position is on the electric rail coming to the state, and just different. It was very, very educational, and we had a great time. So, and there were some wonderfully behaved children on there too. So that we did that yesterday. We also visited last Friday. Was it Hazel Grove Park? Filbert Run. Well, Hazel Grove, Filbert Run. Anyway, I saw the condition of things there, and I think worked out some things. That we'll be working to get that cleaned up and those fire hazards out of the park. We had conversation with the commissioners a couple weeks ago, and it was fairly small, but it was very, very fruitful. We got some very nice ideas from people that were there. So hope to follow that up in September with another and have Betty come to that one. And my last one, I think I talked to you, John, about the water feature, the county water feature down in the plaza. Is that the county's?
Yes.
Yes.
That
Did we talk about that?
I thought we did. I talked to somebody.
Good question.
John's a comment.
Yeah, okay. But it was, it's very distracting to me, the way they're not doing anything about it. Do they not have the money to fix it, or do you know anything about that?
You mean the fountain that's in the plaza right
Yeah.
now?
Uh-huh.
It's fenced off?
Yeah.
I was assuming that was fenced off to keep construction from...
No, I was told there's a crack in it.
There's no water going
Oh,
on it for
it
a
wasn't
long
you.
time.
It was Lloyd. Yeah, there's a crack in it, and they, for safety reasons, have it fenced off, and it just looks pretty bad.
That does look pretty bad.
I can look into it.
Okay.
Does it look any worse than our hoops?
Stop. Oh.
Or the other constructions?
No.
Thanks. That's all I got.
Just to follow up on the Union Pacific run, the purpose of it was Union Pacific is celebrating its 150th year. Now that is not the 150th year to service to Portland or to Oregon City, but there was a history buff there, that train history buff, and they said the first rail that came into Oregon City was from Portland was 1872. It was a different group that went bankrupt, and then somebody else took it over and went bankrupt, and eventually Union Pacific had it. So it's not quite 150 years old to Oregon City, but as a railway, but it's close. I did have some discuss. We had a nice visit with the mayor of Woodburn. She was on the train with us. But we did. Actually, a Union Pacific person had some discussion with him in terms of their involvement in the decisions of a potential future rapid rail system coming from Eugene into Portland. Those have been following it. Originally, there were two proposed routes. One was the electric line that has something to do with Tillamook, I think, and the other one was our Union Pacific line area for the proposed route. no jurisdiction on the electric line wanted it, and that was not the case for us, of course. We're interested in the rapid rail that could occur. Of course, Union Pacific would have to be very, very much involved. It's their right-of-way and so forth, and they are involved with discussions. Another route that was being proposed in place of electric line was putting a new line along I-5 going into Portland. The indication was that would be a lot more expensive than trying to work in the current line. So those discussions are going on between Union Pacific and I presume Amtrak, but whoever's responsible for the potential future rapid rail system.
Yeah, and to me, it sounded very hopeful because the cost of building a new system somewhere as opposed to running along what we've got is exponential. It's just hugely different.
However, he did say the cost of doing the Union Pacific line through Oregon City would probably be about $2 billion, which is a lot of money. But anyway, the thing is, to those of us who have had the opportunity to be overseas and see some of the rail systems that operate in other countries, we're like a third world country as far as that's concerned. We really are. We're well behind the curve in terms of a lot of the developing countries, and I think I'm concerned that we're not going to progress. So I hope we're successful in the mass transit effort on rail system. I've got nothing else to say. Anybody else?
Nope.
Well, with that, meeting's adjourned.
Yay.
If